So, hey, it's been a while since I've made a longer video on my YouTube channel. Well, I mean, about a month. But regardless, I've been wanting to start a new review series for a while now, and what better time to do it than now, just a few weeks after the release of Satisfactory. Now, don't get me wrong, I love this game, and I intend to review it in as great a detail as I can with the knowledge I possess from my 100 hours of gameplay. So, just a couple of things before we start. The game is forecasted to update in about a month, with the next update likely to drop sometime before or just after Easter, so this review could be voided after that time. If this happens, I'll make an updated review of the overall game, or more likely a review of the update itself, if people want it of course. If you do find this review entertaining and or useful, show me by leaving a like or telling me in the comments below. Obviously this is slightly different from most of my other content, with this being more of a laid back video rather than fast paced gameplay with friends or me just mucking around in my editing software. So it would be useful for me to gauge whether or not people are interested with this type of content. One final thing to note is that I'll basically be spoiling the whole game, so if you haven't played it or experienced it for yourself, you may want to do that before watching. The game doesn't actually have much of a story at the moment, but I'll say it anyway just in case. So there are a few categories I'd like to discuss regarding the game, that being the look and feel of the game, or what I'm going to call the general atmosphere, construction and other base related mechanics, the levelling up system that the game has, that being the MAM, tiers and the space elevator, and finally the combat. I'll probably include timestamps to these in the actual video. Anyway, without further ado, let's get started. I feel that the game is built pretty well. It kind of reminds me of Subnautica, but obviously without all the water. The game is colourful and the environment is amazing to look at. It runs well on almost any setting, and I would say that my PC is probably about average. When you start a new game, you have the choice of 3 biomes, the lush area, the desert, or the jungle. All areas have both advantages and disadvantages associated with them. For example, the lush area has flat land, which makes base building much easier. But most deposits in the area are impure. In the long term, this can have an effect on the efficiency of your factory, as less resources are gathered per one deposit, meaning that more deposits have to be used for simple tasks. By far the best starting area in my opinion is the desert. The land is relatively flat, meaning that large bases like the one I built with my friend over the course of a week can be constructed. But the best bit is nearly all the deposits are pure, meaning that you extract twice as many resources per deposit than the average. This further eases the process of base building, that is until trains are added anyway. The only apparent disadvantage is that you get reduced early game fuel, but most players switch to coal by the 3 or 4 hour mark, and will have saved plenty of biomass that will still be lying around here and there. All of the starting areas exist within one map, meaning that if you wanted to, you could just move from one to the other. And once long range transportation is popularised, I can see rail worlds being quite viable. There is an interactive map that can be accessed online, but there is currently no minimap available in game. I will link this map which shows all the deposits and their purities if you guys want to have a look at it. The music in the game is great. While being basic, it is inviting and suits the game style just fine. Factorio does this in a similar way, with the soundtrack suiting the dark world that you were put in. Here, the music is upbeat and futuristic, and this perfectly mimics the world that you're in, improving the immersion massively. That's all I have to say about the environment and its immersion. I've played through Satisfactory a total of 4 times now, each time my base building getting progressively better. Starting with this explosion factory I built during the alpha test weekend, to my multi-storey main bus factory that is nearing its completion. And base building, well, it's hard, but that's one of the reasons I like games like this. I hate to deviate too much, but Factorio, great game, similar premise, similar challenges. I'll give you an example. Let's say you have an area prepared that you want to use to make something. Let's say a late game resource, such as heavy modular frames. You need to spend ages building your assemblers only to find you forgot one of the resources, and so you have to expand. In Factorio you could just deconstruct everything using bots and literally move it a few spaces to the left or right to fix the issue. In Satisfactory you have to endlessly deconstruct everything, and it takes forever. Another obvious comparison that can be made to other factory games such as Factorio is that Satisfactory is 3D. There are both advantages and disadvantages of this, the main advantage being that the player can build huge factories in a tiny area. However, when building on larger areas it may be hard to find flat ground, and that's where foundations come in. These panels, capable of defying gravity and physics, require only 6 concrete to be crafted in order to build them. But you'll have to place a lot of foundations, and this will literally drain your soul as you walk slowly in a long line, placing foundation after foundation after foundation, one after the other, slowly but surely, and then you miss one, falling to a slow and painful death, or worse, having to climb back up into your factory floor somehow. But yeah, aside from being salty that I can't place foundations, they're incredibly useful for flattening areas out, apart from the fact that they're too steep. What, I hear you say? Too steep, but they're designed to flatten land out. Well, yes, but actually no. For some reason they're sloped at the edges just enough to give trucks a bumpy ride and ruining your day when the last constructor you need to place for your factory can't be placed because the floor is too steep. Please, please, please fix this, devs, if somehow you're watching this. Cheers. Okay, rant over, back to the rest of the video. As of today, that is the 10th of April, there are 4 types of conveyor belts, each with their own building opportunities brought by their speed, 3 types of splitter, even though one is uncraftable, 3 different types of automated crafters, and much more that I can't be bothered to list because the video would literally be 2 hours long. With so many components, there are endless possibilities for construction within the world. I personally look on the game's Discord server to see what other people are building and take inspiration. While there is no blueprint system in the game currently, as Factorio has, people have started making their own. These are basically digital circuit diagrams, but for factory processes. For example, here is one for the current endgame item, the supercomputer, that I pulled from the screenshot section of the game's Discord server. I love this game's levelling up system. Similarly to Factorio's Science Packs system, each upgrade has to be researched individually and will unlock one or more items for the player to use, but unlike Factorio, these upgrades are split into tiers rather than a tech tree. Once a tier is reached, the player can select any upgrade from within the tier. I like the system because it makes you feel like you have more control, not just going over dozens of useless upgrades to get to the one you want, similarly to how bots work in Factorio. To access tiers, one must first unlock the hub. This will become the centre, or, well, the hub of your base. After finishing the build, the player will have access to both tiers 1 and 2. To access tier 3 and beyond, the player must first build the space elevator. This structure is huge, and I mean it. Items can be placed in it by hand or automatically placed in it using belts as shown here. The problem I have with this at the moment is that the elevator gets only 2 uses in the entire game. And yeah, I know they're adding more tiers soon, but I feel like I have a solution to the issue. I think each tier should require its own elevator upgrade. For example, at tier 5, oil is unlocked, but then you can also access tier 6. To get more use out of the space elevator, one could have to pay, let's say, 250 circuits and 100 fuel. It's not exactly expensive, but it would give the space elevator more use, and I understand that this is nitpicky. I just think it would be nice for something so large to serve more of a purpose within the game. The other thing unlocked upon completion of the hub is the MAM. This will allow you to research items you find in the world, which will then unlock an upgrade in the normal upgrade console. Any researchable item can be researched at any time, but the tier in which the upgrade is actually accessed is determined by how hard the item is to obtain. Most normal upgrades are within tiers 1 to 3, apart from a few exceptions that fall under the research chains category. These chains are genuinely one of my favourite features in the game. Currently, the only chain available is the Cantirium? Let's just call it gold. This material is not needed in any space elevator upgrades in the game, meaning it is entirely optional to use, but boy is it useful when you do. You can start the alternative tech chain by finding the ore. You can usually find this in little stubs like this one I found in the mountains area of the desert, near where my coal plant is. But there is one by the spawn point in the desert that me and my friend used in our current playthrough. Once you have 25 ore, you can then research it in the MAM to unlock the next step. In this case, researching the ore will unlock a tier 3 upgrade, unlocking the scanner upgrade and a few other quality of life items. The scanner upgrade allows the player to scan for mineable deposits, and once found, the ore can be processed into bars and a new type of wire which will serve as the primary ingredient in the chain. The quality of life things I was talking about were the Mark II power poles, allowing for 6 connections instead of 4, and the Blade Runners. Oh, the Blade Runners. For any Factorio players, Do you guys remember unlocking the exosuits and trying for hours just to power a couple of them to boost your movement speed just a little bit more? Well, for just 50 quick wire and some other minor components, your character can go from human to Sonic the Hedgehog. No powering necessary. These boots served as my primary body slot item for the rest of the game, literally. Not only does this item speed you up, it reduces fall damage and even increases jump height. This makes researching one item and setting up furnaces and constructors worth the extra time and space. The quick wire can also be researched to unlock a tier 5 upgrade, allowing you to craft supercomputers and advanced sorting splitters. Finally, researching 10 supercomputers will allow the player to unlock geothermal power and the aforementioned uncraftable smart splitter. The next update is said to have 2 more of these research chains added, and honestly, I can't wait. I love this feature, and as I said, it is easily one of the best features the game has going for it. As discussed in the atmosphere section, the game is filled with a variety of biomes and areas to explore while your factory is busy making the next tier upgrade for you. And well, there's a lot of map. People estimate it's about 30 kilometers by 30 kilometers, which is pretty big. Because of this, many areas are currently incomplete, but it does have a lot going for it. As seen in the original trailer for the game, there may be bosses later down the line to fight. This would likely be a late game feature, and I think it would work well in the game's favour as an alternative to constantly building bases. That's, in my opinion, what makes this factory game better than others. It's choice. Yeah, you could just disable bases in Factorio, but that would make no use for tanks, and even if they were on the lowest setting, bases would become incredibly hard to expand. In Satisfactory, you are met by small numbers of mobs each time you discover a new deposit or area. This helps add some challenge to the exploration, but not to the point where I have to devote half my game to defending my base. That's why I think people who like biters would like the bosses. They would likely be tricky and a long-term investment to fight. This would mean players would have to explore to find items such as inhalers, a healable that heals the player to full health. This would suit the playstyle as it would be a choice. That's how I think bosses will be used. Hopefully it's not like Don't Starve where your base dies every hour due to a boss spawning. Another benefit to exploring is the discovery of hard drives, which allow the player, once researched, to unlock alternative recipes which can be used by themselves or by machines. Some of these are brilliant, like the alternative screw recipe, which removes the need to craft iron rods when making screws, hugely increasing the efficiency and cutting the number of constructors in half, saving significant amounts of space if used in a large factory, like this one which is making modular frames. This helps me complete the build faster despite having to find and power up a wreck and then get the hard drive itself, wait 10 minutes for it to research, and then be able to use the recipe. And still it seemed to save me time. In my opinion, this gives more incentive for players to go around roaming the world in search of loot. The hard drives are definitely a good feature, and I hope they add more in the future to make more recipes easier to do and increase the efficiency of crafting recipes. And that was my review of Satisfactory. That's basically everything I could think of that I wanted to discuss. I believe the game is well on its way to becoming my favourite, and as long as the updates come out as they're forecasted, I firmly believe that it will. At this stage, I reckon the game is about a 7.5, maybe 8 out of 10. In the coming months, I'm sure I'll easily be able to give this game a 10 out of 10. What do you guys think? Does anyone agree with any of the points I had in this video? Can anyone suggest any other improvements to the game? I'd love to hear the thoughts in the comments below. Also, let me know if you want to see more reviews like this in the future. I liked making this, it was pretty fun, it took a long time, but I think it was worth it. Anyway guys, that's all I have time for, and this is Avoider5 signing out.